Anyway, here I got to start over. Just real quick. So this is 5 steps to automation, number 11 in the series. This is tied to this course, Requirements Development and Management for Business Data Analytics, the language of data. My name is Richard Frederick. My information is at the top of the slide if you're interested. These logos represent all of the different standards that I use to understand requirements. And the reason there's so many is that nobody's figured it out. If you're in the requirements business, or if your job is to elicit, analyze, document, and validate requirements, and you're struggling, you're not alone. Everybody that does this for a living, this is literally the hardest thing you can do, is requirements on one side and estimating on the project management. So I always say requirements on the business analyst side and estimating on the project management side are the 2 hardest things you can do. And actually those 2 things are connected together. So that's why there's so many different standards. Again, for those of you that are new, I teach a course on this specific to how to deal with requirements. It's a traditional requirements class. If you've ever taken a requirements class, this is a traditional class. The difference is most traditional requirements courses focus on product and process requirements, whereas I specialize in data requirements. And the reason I specialize in data requirements is because of the digital transformation. And why is the digital transformation important? It's because that's how we're enabling intelligent assistants who ultimately are going to change our jobs. My background, I owned a software company back in the 1990s that did software integration, custom software solutions. We built these products or solutions that we called Autobots. It's hard to believe it's so long ago. It's the same age as my daughter, and she's like 25 now, so I just laugh about that. And software integration leads to workflow automation, which obviously was designed to help companies, organizations operate more efficiently. For those of you that are aware of this, you're probably looking at going, oh, these are Mac icons, and they were. We specialized in corporate graphics for Fortune 500 companies. People like Dr. Pepper, Frito-Lay, EDS, American Heart, Neiman Marcus. My company's based out of Dallas, Texas. It still is based in Dallas, Texas, even though I live here in Florida. I'm semi-retired. Anyway, enough of me. Let's talk about what we're here for. So what we're going to do is each one of these lunch and learns is really about the role of a business analyst is to seek to understand. And if you're new, you'll notice there's icons, there's faces along the right-hand side of the screen. And those faces really represent what I call the team of the future. So at the top, you have your business analyst, and underneath that, you have what I call, or your business analyst product owner. Underneath that, you have your project manager, scrum master, who in my world also has database administration skills, DBA skills. Underneath that, you have your IT system architect, otherwise called your data wrangler. Underneath that, you have your developer, data scientist, subject matter expert. I mean, these are just generic roles. Underneath that, you have your QA test validation person. And then at the very bottom, you'll see the woman in blue, who is Cortana, who represents the deployment model of intelligent assistance. The concept of all of these lunch and learns is that data drives intelligence. And so each of these lunch and learns is geared towards data. And in this particular one, we're going to talk about the 5 steps to automation. Very quickly, the first automation project I ever did was built around a archiving solution, without really getting into the detail of that. When I met a CFO, let me just kind of give you the quick story. When I got into this business, I was a network troubleshooter. I owned a network troubleshooting company. Long story short, we fixed someone's network. We did a network utilization graph. We showed that most institutions operate at about 70% utilization or productivity. I presented that to the client, the chief financial officer, who, by the way, is the person that I train all my students to communicate with their CFO. Because if you can communicate with your CFO, you basically can communicate with everybody. We're going to get into that later. I'm going to talk about accounting and all that kind of stuff. But long story short, my CFO said, you know, okay, so 70% productive, what do you call the other 30%? And I said, I call that administrivia. And she said, can you get rid of it? I said, yes, we can automate it. And she said, no, you don't understand. Everybody here has a computer. We are automated. And I said, no, you don't understand. I said, when you give a human a computer, all you've done is computerize the human. It's only when you replace a human with a computer that you've automated. If that makes sense, put a yes in the text chat. Just type in yes if that makes sense to you. So just having a computer isn't making you automated, it's just computerizing you. Anybody got that? Okay, cool. So at least Carlos gets that. Anyway, so that led me out of network troubleshooting into workflow automation. So we built robots, which are software programs that run unattended by themselves. That's the whole premise of automation. And in the process of going through that, in order to automate a shop, people are always talking about, well, the business analyst comes in and they help us get automated. Okay, so what does that mean? Well, it's really 5 steps. It's categorization, drives organization and documentation, which drives integration, which ultimately leads to automation. So we're going to walk you through those steps. Again, very, very quickly. None of this is a deep dive. It's just information to kind of get your brain wrapped around, you know, where we're going as we get a little deeper and a little deeper and a little deeper. So let me start with categorization. So categorization, in many ways, is naming conventions for dimensional process modeling. And later on, I'm going to teach you about the unified dimension model process, but not today. We'll just touch on it. But categorization is about, you know, data structure, dimensions, and attributes. It's just like it sounds. It's categorizing your data, but it's based around your process. So on the right-hand side of this slide, I have kind of an example of a file naming convention that, you know, is built around almost like a decomposed work breakdown structure process. And so that's an important component of kind of where we're going. Underneath it, I got a Dilbert. It says the committee decided that the file naming convention will start with the date in the order of month, year, and day, and then a space, then the temperature at the airport, and the hat size of the nearest squirrel. So for those of you that have ever been into this, you will hopefully find the humor in that. I busted out laughing because I've lived through this whole process. The 4 bullets that you see, the steps, are really kind of a modeling process. Choose your process, declare your grain. We're going to teach you this later. Identify dimensions, and then identify the fact table. So really what we're doing is we have transactional data, which is operational data. And the goal is to transform that transactional or operational data into analytical data. And once it's in analytical data, then it's in a format that eventually intelligent assistants will take advantage of. It'll start, you know, that's where we start talking about prescriptive analytics, predictive analytics, semantic reasoning, that kind of information. Okay, but everything starts with categorization. And where does that start? Well, it really starts in how your organization sets up what we call managerial accounting codes. So every institution that operates has some sort of a hierarchy. And what I'm trying to do on this screen is just simply show you that there's a lot of different ways to organize your institution. There's no one right or wrong way. There's just different ways. So for example, I got a company ZZ that has division, department, and project, and maybe another company does it by portfolio program project. I mean, those are just two examples of what we call managerial categorization. And you'll see in the bottom, it says managerial categorization drives institutional organization. What happens for a lot of business analysts is when they go to initiate a project or charter a project, a lot of the information that they need isn't explicitly available. And so the team will create something new that doesn't embrace what's already been designed. So they'll come up with a whole new naming scheme and naming conventions for project files and assets and things like that. And then, of course, once it's done, it doesn't fit back into the institutional hierarchy. So we spend a lot of time telling people to leverage the structures that are already there as opposed to creating new structures. So if you're on a project and you're an analyst and it seems unstructured, it's because no one's leveraging the structure that already exists. Okay, so just keep that in mind. All right. So on one side, we have these managerial structures that are created by your own organization. So they get to set it up. On the other side, we have financial structure, which generally comes from, again, generally accepted accounting principles, which is financial accounting. Or if you're in the government, it's, there's a government accounting standards board that also follows generally accepted accounting principles, but kind of on the government side. But those are the only two. There's the Financial Accounting Standards Board and there's the General Accounting Standards Board. We're not going to get any deeper than that. But generally, what I always tell everybody is this. The way to remember these numbers is 1, 2, 3 balance sheet, 4, 5, 6 income statement. So generally, one categorize, if you look at a balance sheet, all your assets are always categorized with a 1 series type of number. Your liabilities are a 2, your owner's equity is a 3, your revenues are 4. Sometimes if you have cost of goods sold, if you're manufacturing, you might have a 5, and then overhead is a 6. Some organizations only have 5 of these categories because they don't have cost of goods sold, but that's it. That's as far as I'm going with that slide right now. I'll teach you more about that later if you're interested. But the thing you need to know is that all of these, quote, non-financial managerial accounting categories or codes correlate to financial accounting codes, or non-financial correlates to financial accounting results. And this is all a part of what you need to know as a business analyst as you go out to elicit information to build business data analytic type of projects. So, and I'm always stressing to my business analysts that the business word, like when we say business analyst, the business side of it means accounting. That you have to have not only a technical skill set, but accounting skill set as well. And the accounting skill set isn't necessarily debits and credits, although that's nice to know. It's more about how the institution organizes data through categorization. That's the thing you got to be aware of as a business analyst. Okay, so what are we really talking about? So these categories are used to create what are called dimension models. And dimension models are just data structure dimensions and attributes. And the purpose of them is to, again, organize data for analysis. So just keep that in mind, that data is transactional, and in order to analyze it, we have to transition it or convert it from transactional data to analytical data. All right. And I'm going to show you an example with a visual here in about a second. But I just want you to understand that these categories are things that you're probably already very comfortable with. For example, there's a what's called an OLAP cube, and the primary categories are the route and the source and time. So, and you put these together, and then that gives you information that you can then do something with. You can analyze. All right. So these categories all come from, by the way, they come from process. So as you analyze process, it's going to help you identify categories. For what purpose? Well, really what it boils down to is we're trying to convert transactional data to analytical data. So the categorization drives organization and documentation. And this is the big thing I'm always trying to get across to everybody is that, you know, ultimately as analysts, we serve stakeholders who live and die by dashboards. And that really is the future. And it's really funny because the concept of everybody operating from a dashboard is just starting to really take hold. And this is this is the digital transformation. As we accumulate all this data and it's stored in a giant data lake, and then we process it, and then we, through a series of what we call join files, extract, transform, load, as we kind of move all that across through our data pipeline into an analytical format, then we enable our executives or stakeholders to slice and dice the data, like, drill downs and roll ups and slice and dice, etc. Okay. And so this slide is kind of taking you from a transactional report view to a analytical report, which is a dashboard. All right. And this really, at the end of the day, is what business data analytics is all about. This is it right here. We're just taking a lot of this transactional data and we're just converting it into dashboards for people to make decisions. I mean, that's really fundamentally why we have computers in the first place. So the premise then is you have to have all this set up first before. So when people talk about automation and you go in and you say, okay, they were like, we need to automate this. The question I'm always coming to them with is, okay, well, show me how you organize and document everything. And if they don't have that figured out, then this is where you're going to do a lot of remediation. You're going to spend, as a business analyst, a lot of time documenting how the data gets transformed and that process. So that's something that usually is in the domain of, we call the data wranglers. But as a business analyst, you need to be aware of how that works, because you need to see the whole connection. So just really quickly, I've trained thousands, and I don't say that to brag, thousands of business analysts, and we don't normally teach anything beyond how to come up with an ERD, an entity relationship diagram. And therein lies a problem, because we're sort of limiting our analysts to the only thing we're teaching them about data is the ERD, which is just simply how to structure transactional data or how to build a transactional database. But the analyst of the future needs to know the entire process, not just how to deal with transactional data, but more importantly, how to go through extract, transform, and load, ETL, to get to analytical data that can then be utilized by management in the form of a dashboard. Once it's in a dashboard, a lot of that process in a lot of places is done kind of manually. So there are people whose job it is to extract data and then kind of massage the data into dashboards for management to come and then look at and make decisions. So, and that's a good step. That's one of the steps, right? So once you have that down, then what you have to do is eliminate that person whose job it is to take data from all these different subsystems, put them together into a report so that somebody can generate a dashboard. And as an analyst, our job is to tie all of this stuff together through requirements so that it can be integrated. Okay, so this is really kind of the next step, is integration. And we're going to go from batch to real time. And I can't tell you the number of times that I've talked to people or had people in my classes that got really upset with me when I told them that the easiest job to get rid of is the person whose job it is to accumulate data from the different databases, put it into a single spreadsheet so that someone then can turn around and run business intelligence reports off of it. And they're like, that's my whole career. And I'm like, yep, that one's going. Why? Well, it takes too long. You know, the computers are running in real time, but the process, when you have a human in there trying to pull all these transactions and collect them and organize them into batches, and then uh, transform it into analytical data, is too time intensive. So this is really the part that I'm always telling everybody, is that until your shop is set up where it's integrated, then it can't be automated. And so for me, this is like, if I were to walk into your shop, I could pretty quickly figure out how efficient you were by just asking around about how you guys write reports. Okay. So we're going to implement Power BI to visualize financial reports. The account records are stored in Oracle database and writing code to export. What are your thoughts on best approaches? There's not much. I mean, NetSuite has most of it already built in. So it's a one-stop shop with them. So there's really not much. It's the custom reports. That's the thing. It's when people want things that are custom. That's where the process slows down. And the other process, and so Shirley brought up a really good point, you're going to have different executives who want different things. So, and that's kind of the problem of being a BI person, a business intelligence analyst, is that trying to find a one-size-fits-all scenario. And again, this leads us into a whole new set of conversations that I can't really cover today, but we'll come back to that. We'll address that in another environment. But your NetSuite is already set up. It's a full-blown, ready to go, transactional all the way over to the dashboard. So it's pretty much done. It's just garbage in, garbage out. So so this leads me from integration batch to real time to ultimately, which is automation. Okay. So automation is, and hopefully you'll kind of get a sense from the photos. So I got Power BI on one side, and you'll notice that I have an analyst, or I'm just going to call her an analyst, who is, using a tablet with dashboards to drive a manufacturing process where there's no humans. And in this case, obviously we're manufacturing physical product, but we could also be manufacturing intellectual property in the form of software code or music or whatever. And if you look on the photograph on the right, I put Cortana on the screen. So to kind of let you know, oh, there's an intelligent assistant in there. So the future really for us is driving intelligent assistants from a dashboard. And this is a machine learning kind of model underneath, where you get the data, you clean and prep and manipulate the data, you train your model, you test your data, and you improve your process. This is the future right here, is that we work with intelligent assistants who then enables us to do what's called predictive and prescriptive analytics. Now, coming up on another one of these lunch and learns, I'm going to be teaching you all about earned value. I call it earned value EZ, which is variance analysis. And so once we do the variance analysis, then this should start to make a little bit more sense about, why this is important, like why this whole process is important. But understand that, and this is what's fascinating, is the technology's here. So this is not a technology issue anymore. Like 20 years ago, the technology wasn't really available to do everything that we wanted to do. But today, that's no longer the case. And with the rollout of 5G, this is going to become literally ubiquitous. I mean, it's going to be everywhere. And so as a BA, my mission is to train all my BAs to be prepared for this data-driven world that we're coming into. So I'm trying to fill that gap from the ERD to the dashboard. And that's kind of what is missing. So that's why I'm doing these. And And that's why I'm also selling these classes. So if you're in a group and you're with a bunch of BAs and they need this kind of information, or you think this would be useful, stay in touch with me, and I would love to teach a class for you. If you like these little webinars, you'll love my class. So that being said, let me bring us to the summary, because I'm at the end of my lunch and learn. So again, categorization is about the structure of the data based on the process of how it's used. And having that categorization then allows us to organize and document it to transform transactional data into analytic data. And then once we have it in an analytic format, the goal is to then eliminate the batch process of the transformation so that it happens automatically. So one of the big projects that a business analyst needs to be working on is this integration project. So if you're working in a shop and they're doing a lot of status reports and they're not really leveraging dashboards, then that's an opportunity right there, because in order to really move into intelligent assistance, the concept of the status report almost needs to disappear, and what needs to replace it is a dashboard. So that'll give you kind of an idea of where your organization is at in its evolution as an analyst. And hopefully, anybody have a place that's doing status reports? Yes. If you really do want to know how to do it, contact Bob, because Bob does all this too. He writes simulation code. So is anybody doing anybody have an organization doing status reporting still? Like, and it's common. It's don't make it like it's a bad thing. I mean, everybody does status reporting of some kind. Put a yes if your organization's doing status reporting, like weekly status reporting or daily status reporting. Nobody? Anyway, nobody wants to fess up. It's not bad, it's reality. So internally, pretty much everybody still does status reports, and that's okay. That's okay. But that lets you know that, okay, so you're kind of ahead of the curve in that once we transition away from status reports, and I'm not saying status reports will go away completely, so please don't misunderstand what I'm saying. What I am saying is that a lot of status reports will be converted into dashboards. And once they're in the dashboard format and it's done automatically, then you'll start to develop the data repositories necessary for intelligent assistance. So, okay, and that's automation, where it runs on its own. Any questions on that? Have we got any questions on this? I'm looking at the chat. No questions? All right. All right. Well, then, thank you again for coming out. Let's see. What's I told you I'm a little loopy today. Next week, I'm trying to remember what we're doing next week. I think I'm doing the numbers game. The financial and non-financial and financial accounting, I think, is next week. So hopefully you'll come back for that, and I'll connect this to that. I had some of those slides in here a little bit. And so again, anytime you're, as an analyst, you're thinking about doing an automation project, someone says, hey, we want to automate this. You need to remind yourself, categorization drives organization and documentation, which drives integration, which drives automation. And now you can kind of systematically go through and identify where the strengths and weaknesses are. This is kind of how you can do your SWOT analysis to determine where to focus your requirements efforts. So, okay, with that, we are done for the day. And I will see you guys, or whoever comes back, I'll see you guys next week. Thanks again for spending about 37 minutes with me. So we're done. Oh, by the way, just FYI, if you're not a member of the IIBA, the meetup group, go to our meetup group. Cliff put the link in it in the text chat. So scroll up in your text chat, go to our meetup group, join our meetup group. It doesn't cost anything. And I post the videos there. If you want a copy of this slide deck in a PDF format, reach out to me through my Gmail account, rfrederick.pmp@gmail.com. Our meetup is www.meetup.com/Tampa Bay IIBA. If you are not connected with me on LinkedIn, please reach out to me on LinkedIn. Love to be a part of your network. My LinkedIn is www.linkedin.com/in/rfrederick. If you or somebody in your organization would like to bring a lot of this information with some actual transactional exercises out to your shop, I'm available through meetings.hubspot.com, rfrederick-PMP. So that's it. And we are done. And I will talk to you all next week. Have a great weekend.